Did you know at Kroger, shopping online with pickup and delivery is the same as shopping in-store? Same low prices, same personalized deals, same rewards, with no hidden fees or markups on your same family favorites, like Honeycrisp apples and pasta sauce. The only difference is you don't have to put on shoes. Start your cart today at Kroger.com. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to Molby on the Spot, your weekly chance. Thanks to Anfield Index Pro to hear the wit and wisdom of your friend and mine, Mr. Jan Molby. So let's stop messing about and greet him once more. Good evening, Jan.
Yes, good evening, Trevor. Good evening. I hope you're keeping well.
I am indeed. I'm in ridiculously good form because of what's going on with our football team. I don't want to jump the gun, but it just feels after our little conversation dominated by, your take on how this is a team that just finds ways to win. All we've had is more evidence of that in the interim, which is very nice, very rewarding kind of a situation to be in. We've some games to look back on. We have some games to look ahead to. But I want to start, if you don't mind, so that we definitely we have time for them and we don't leave them to one side and not get round to them. I want to start with a couple of questions from people who have gotten in touch there on the Discord channel, people who are subscribers to the channel and supporters of the podcast, and they have a couple of questions for you. Now, they're quite long in terms of the setup, so you'll have to bear with each of them. And in other words, very like myself, kind of long-winded, so you're used to it. So we'll start with the first one. This is from Omar. And Omar says, what would be Jan's formula for the perfect midfield balance? Is it as simple as one destroyer, one creator, one controller? If Jan was at the helm of LFC, who would he bring in to create the perfect balance? And I'll just tack on, or do you think we have enough people there to actually achieve it as we are? So the perfect midfield balance, is there a formula to it, do you think?
No, I don't necessarily think there is. Because I think if you look at successful clubs or clubs who have a good midfield, they have various setups. I am not necessarily a massive big fan of, as the subscriber called it, a destroyer. I always think that to play at the highest level, it isn't enough if that's all you bring is. And so I'm looking, if you look at Liverpool's midfield at the moment, we obviously got Endo, who's away, isn't it? But we got McAllister, who's growing in that sixth role. Now, I could easily live with the lack of McAllister's defensive qualities, his lack of ability to get around the pitch. And this is what we're doing at the moment, and it's suiting him. We're keeping together, aren't we? We're playing in tight areas. We're playing in tight areas where he can be quite aggressive, because he doesn't have to cover big, wide areas. So I quite like that. But I also do understand, and it was evident early on in the season, we weren't getting away with it, were we? He was getting exposed. But I just think that the longer we work with this, and the longer that the people around him are improving, and also think that, having two centre-halves or even a back four back to being strong obviously has an impact on the midfield as well. So I don't think there is a perfect formula of how you want to put them together. But it's a 6 and 2 8 or a 6 8 and 10 or whatever you want to call it. But I quite like the way that we're heading. And what I like more about the way our midfield is heading is that we're not relying on anyone in particular. Szoboszlai doesn't have to play for us to play well. McAllister doesn't have to play for us to play well. Possibly, and there's been a little bit of an upturn in our play in the last couple of games. And possibly, Curtis Jones might not be the most important midfield player we've got, isn't it? So, yeah, that's kind of the summary of the midfield.
I like that. And, I'm not sure if you're keeping abreast of the, latest mumblings and mutterings from the local journalists, but we had David Lynch on an Anfield Index podcast during the week talking to Dave Davis about how the feeling is that the club have gone a bit cold on the concept of getting in at 6. And my response to that was, well, we kind of nailed our colours to the mast last summer, didn't we? It was very clear that that's the profile of footballer that we wanted, and people can be forgiven for thinking, well, one in, one out in terms of Fabinho is obviously that type of player. And then we go and we do sign a sort of, with all due respect to the lad, at the time would appear to be a budget version of that in terms of Endo. And it seems to be that the appetite for that has for that specific profile of footballer has declined, or at least. And again, it's not to say that people like David Lynch or others are there's anything untoward going on, but people used to say that some of the journalists were briefed in terms of getting the club line, and we know that is a tried and trusted way of letting fans know, listen, this is not going to happen, or this is going to happen. So it is interesting that, Jan, isn't it, that the club seems to be drifting that way? Do you think it's based on the fact that, again, going back to your words about this team finding a way to win, as you said there in your summary, they are an evolving team, and we got to see a very good example of what McAllister could look like, both as a tackling and passing midfielder who, when he's surrounded by enough energy, he could actually look the part there. Yeah,
I mean, obviously McAllister is starting to find his feet, isn't it? So is it Liverpool evolving in terms of, I mean, 6 months ago, from Liverpool's point of view, or 12 months ago from the point of view of football generally, people convinced themselves over the period of time that what we must have now is a false nine. So the false nine is in. So because of that, every false nine increases 20-25 million in value. Then for a while, got to have wide strikers who guarantees goals. So all of a sudden they're 50, 60, 70 million. And I think the last sort of thing has been this number 6. It was obviously because of Rodri at Manchester City. And all of a sudden people are looking at Manchester City and going, what is it that sets them apart? It's a number 6 that is good defensively, always available, and is what we call press resistant. But if you want the top players of that, we saw that in the summer. Chelsea paid over 100 million, Arsenal paid over 100 million, isn't it? And I think that Klopp has gone, okay, we have to solve that problem. We have to find a way of dealing with that. And I think we've done that. So maybe the time has come yet again for another position to be in being fashionable, isn't it? I think I think Klopp is looking at it all and going, okay, if I need a 6 of the quality that can improve us, unless we get lucky and we can find somebody really young, we need to be paying in excess of £60 million. And then he's thinking, what about all the players we've got? What about the work we've done with Curtis Jones, who's now, as I mentioned before, turned into who he is? And what about Harvey Elliott, who's also showing really good signs? And Stefan Bajcetic is going to return at some stage, isn't he? Got Szoboszlai and Endo. We've got a lot of midfield players at a good age, haven't we? So I think Klopp is saying, if that money is available, he might want to spend that elsewhere. I still think that, I think Klopp is excited by his front 5. I still think that if he's totally honest, he's probably looking at maybe one more striker that he can 100% trust. You know, at the moment, you trust Mo because his numbers are always good with stats and goals. Darwin Núñez, bang, 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 is what he is, isn't he? You know what I mean? Luis Diaz is a little bit what he is, isn't it? Gakpo is he's sort of in between, isn't he? And then you've got Shota, who, when he plays, is fantastic, isn't he? But he's had a few injuries. So I think Klopp is maybe thinking that if that money's available, I might want to spend that elsewhere. Because I think he's quite happy with the way it's working with the midfield. And let's not forget people we'd almost written off. You know, Joe Gomez is back in it now, isn't he? You know, staying injury-free, playing ever so well. You could see him without any trouble playing right back, left back, centre half, isn't he? So as much as we've had some injury problems, I think the injury problems have actually helped and enhanced the quality of our squad. So, yeah, if I was Liverpool, see, in the summer it was different, Trevor, because in the summer I'm going Lavia. Now I don't know what Lavia is going to be like, but or Caicedo, who went to Chelsea, or Declan Rice. Instantly, I'm telling you, some number sixes who I think will improve our team. You ask me the same question now. Now I'm all of a sudden thinking, you know, I could probably find some, isn't it? But it might be an even bigger risk than Lavia and Caicedo were, you know. So I'm a little bit with the club. I'm starting to float away from that thinking that you can't be successful without having a really good defensive press resistant number six.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's basically, do you want your golf bag to have every club in there, you know, so that we could say play a very, very defense orientated. It's not. I don't like the word destroyer. I think it's an oversimplification of what someone like Fabinho did for us. But you're talking about the kind of guy who'll get a foot in here and a foot in there, and will read block passing lanes and intercept things and keep play going and ticking over and that type of thing, and not necessarily have the forethoughts on attack. One of those types. Now you imagine, Jan, a world class one of those types, and we have the option to rotate Curtis Jones, Alexis McAllister, Dom Szoboszlai, plus any of the other lads who you've mentioned who've put their hand up recently, as the eights ahead of that. And that gets exciting too, doesn't it? As a kind of a formula. Now, would it be successful? Would it be as successful as what's evolving currently? Well, that's the question, isn't it? It's tempting, isn't it? When you're not the club, you're not in charge of finances, you're not actually overseeing the squad. It is tempted to play manager and think, well, I would like to have this. I guess that's why people will continue to talk about it and maybe get their knickers in a bit of a twist if it doesn't happen.
Yeah, but it's what I said before, Trev. People have convinced themselves that this is what you need. You know, you can sit down with, I would suggest, 75% of all Liverpool fans and go, tell me, what does it take to have a successful team? What kind of centre-halves do you need? What kind of fullbacks do you need? What kind of midfield players do you need? And they'll all have an idea. And all those ideas will be pretty much the same, won't they? I mean, 2 years ago, what did you need? You need an attacking, overlapping fullbacks. That's no longer the case now. You need totally different. You could even get away with playing centre-halves and fullbacks because they step in, whatever, all them things, isn't it? So, yeah, Liverpool, football fans in generally will carry on talking about the number six, and they'll probably carry on talking about the number six until the number six no longer is as fashionable as they are right now. Because people still, as I said before, convince themselves because they look at City. But I mean, it's a bit like, so is Rodri the best number six? I don't know, but he's certainly very good. We can't doubt that. But I'm thinking, would Pep, see, I can't have Pep, next time he's got to rebuild that midfield, I can't have him going out and buying a number six. He'll do something else. He will look to be part of evolving football again, a bit like Klopp is with his in midfield at the moment, isn't it? So it isn't always, this is what we do. Yeah, this is what we do, and then everybody else follows suit. And when they start to catch up, then we do this. And I think that's what we've done. Maybe we've done it with a little bit of luck, isn't it? And maybe that's why, Trevor, we are not as convinced as we should be. Because we look at this team and we go, yeah, but. And maybe we shouldn't be going, yeah, but. Because the more I see of this team, and I know it's only with these two games and in Bournemouth and Fulham, and But I don't know. There's just something, isn't it? There's something that and still, and I said it last week on the podcast, Trevor, I can't get myself to jump both feet in first and go, this is it, isn't it? But I'm thinking, it's going to take some shift in this team, that's for sure.
I think that's exactly it. That last point is exactly it. It feels as if Klopp and these boys have sort of realised that it is there for them, and it's not a pipe dream. And that is sort of coming across, I think, in those performances. Just one last thing on this, and again, it's just very tangentially related to the question from Omar. It is interesting that there are stories linking Liverpool to players in this window, not necessarily for this window. In fact, definitely not for this window. I think, again, that's more of the noises coming out of the club. There'll be nothing happening. And in fact, it's very quiet across the board compared to other winter windows, and it's spectacularly quiet over on the Saudi front, which we touched on last week. But what is interesting is the stories that you're hearing in terms of Liverpool being linked with players isn't, let's go and get that holding midfielder from Atleti, or let's go and get this up-and-comer in the French league. No, it's young and up-and-coming defenders. We're being linked with this kid, Yoro, who is as highly rated as any defender I've ever come across for a kid of his age. The reviews he's getting and the comments I'm reading about his performances are remarkable, and also Diamande as well. It's interesting that, isn't it? And I'm wondering, is that just directly kind of linked to people putting two and two together and getting Joel Matip transferring out of the club because, when he comes back after this, will he get another year or will he not get another year? Will he want another year? Will he want to cash in somewhere else, etc., etc.? But when you look at how Joe Gomez has put his hand up, like you mentioned, and by the way, what a relief for me that my galaxy brain idea of playing Joe Gomez at left back ahead of Costas Tsimikas back in the day has proved to not be completely mental, because that lad is excelling wherever he goes. Currently he's doing super work in that left back berth, to the extent that you wouldn't be at all worried if we had to finish the season out with him there. He's cutting back in, he's carrying the ball into midfield, he's linking the play, he can put a cross in. I'm delighted with him. But it is interesting, Jan, these links with young, up-and-coming, hugely highly rated defenders.
Well, it is this thing, Trevor, and you briefly mentioned on before, with the transfer window being as quiet as it is. I mean, obviously one of the reasons is, this profit, sustainability, financial fair play. It's been around for a number of years, but I think now the clubs are realising it's for real. So not many of them are prepared to play ball. But I also think that football clubs generally, Trevor, are better prepared. There is no more of these panic sort of buys in January. There will be no more of this last day of the window where you're standing outside training grounds and waiting for clubs to get things through. It's planned well in advance, and that's obviously what Liverpool are doing now. So if you look across Liverpool's back line, and you go, yes, Trent is not a problem, and Conor Bradley now looks, he looks like he's more than ready to be at least be an understudy, isn't it? But then you look at Virgil van Dijk, we have no idea. Matip, you mentioned before, we have no idea how long he's gone for. And even Robbo, So it does make sense to get more defenders into the club that you feel are good enough. It's all. I mean, Owen Beck coming back from his loan in Scotland and getting a couple of minutes the other day and all them things, isn't it? But I just always get the impression that these aren't people that the club have put their reputation on the line for. Liverpool very rarely loan players out for them to go out and show Liverpool what they can do. To loan them out so they can show everyone else what they can do, so they can get a nice transfer fee, isn't it? So, but yeah, I like the fact it's all this trouble. It's this. If me and you now were in charge of transfers at Liverpool, I'd knock on your door and I'd go, Trevor, how's our team going to look in 2.5 years' time? End of this season, and then at the start of 2026, 2027, what's our team going to look like? And you go, I don't know. I said, well, we need to know. How? Of the players we got here now, who will still be here, and how do we? And that's what they're doing, isn't it, Trevor? So I kind of like that, and then you give them a little bit of time because that's how Klopp likes to work, isn't it? Yes, there's the odd ones who come strange to the team, bang, bang, bang. But a lot of them, even McAllister to a certain extent, isn't it? You know what I mean? Klopp has had to work with him. Szoboszlai came in and played his game. But McAllister didn't. So we've had to work with McAllister, So, and that's how Klopp likes to do it. And so if you can get him through the door, and I have to say that, go through them. Harvey Elliott, I just never thought what I'm seeing now. Curtis Jones, I never thought what I'm seeing now. Conor Bradley, I've seen Conor Bradley play, comes out from Northern Ireland, whatever, I thought, yeah, okay. But all these players all of a sudden are looking, Quansah, the young centre half, isn't it, Trevor? Our mate Billy. It's, it's all good fun, isn't it?
I heard someone point out during the week, and I thought it was wise, that it's very easy to harshly judge the likes of our Northern Irish kid at right back, or either of the two lads who stepped in at left back, or Cade Gordon, or any of those, when they're coming into a cup team in the early part of the season, which is very much full of similar type players. But when you get it's hard to get a feel for whether they're going to be any good because they're surrounded by lads who are not. But when you get a lad like Conor Bradley who can step in like he did last week into our nominal first team, and granted it's one where there are a lot of lads absent, but still and all he gets to step in and be surrounded by very, very good footballers. And to see him thrive like he did, Jan, it's really heartening, isn't it? And it's almost, it feels unfair to judge a kid on anything other than that, anything other than an opportunity to play not in the midfield, which is populated by other kids, but not in a defensive unit, which is populated by other kids, but in its solid team, so he can play up to the level of his ability. And wow, he has really put his hand up and taken that opportunity, hasn't he?
Hi everyone. This month, the channel is supporting a local charity based in Edinburgh called Steps to Hope. Steps to Hope helps support people who are experiencing homelessness and addiction. The founder of the charity, Richard Roncero, is currently doing a Sleep Rough campaign where he is sleeping rough on the streets in 8 different cities for 8 weeks. Please like, share and follow the Facebook page, and if you can, donate. Thank you.
I've always hated those games. When people go, this is a real opportunity, and you turn up at Anfield for the third round of Carabao Cup and you got 10 kids out.
Yeah.
And people go, this is their chance. And I go, this is not their chance. All this is for them is a glorified friendly, a glorified reserve game playing at Anfield with crowd. That's all it is. Because you're playing with the same players and you don't get that. How do you respond to playing? So Conor Bradley, what he experienced last week against Bournemouth, is a proper game, and it's a proper Premier League game, playing with Premier League players, isn't it? You know what I mean? So I've never been a fan of those. Let the kids play and let's see what they can do. That's the easiest way of getting down on those kids, is when they all play together and they get a chance. That's not the way to do it. But it is impressive to Trev, isn't the way that the improvement of like 4 or 5 players who at the start of the season, I would have said, nah, not good enough, Yeah,
100%. And it's just, it feels so exciting to see, like you said, Curtis Jones finally have that status in the team and reliability that we can actually, count on, and to have this lovely, solid backup now to Trent. Because an awful lot of people would have written off for chances of being able to do anything, even against the Bournemouth, without Trent or Mo. And it's just really heartening. You got lads doing the business up top, you got lads doing the business at the back. As you said, young Billy Quansah, what a fella he is. I'm so impressed with him. Do you know what's really interesting about Quansah is you see him interviewed. He's not a big smiley fella, and earlier on he kind of rubbed people the wrong way when he was made that little throwaway comment about Joel Matip and how he was looking to get his place in the team anyway, and people didn't like the frankness of that, whereas I think you and I loved it. I'm not saying he's humorless or whatever, but he's very serious about his job, which, I love to see. I really like to see that. He's not just, mugging for the camera. That lad is focused. I think it's an underrated thing to see in players. He just has that seriousness about going about his job in a very professional way. He was delighted. He mentioned, listen, it's really nice for me to be able to do this alongside Connor. We've played together for a long time, and those two lads are absolutely lapping it up and taking their opportunity in a way that's very encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, Quansah is not overawed, but he's also not surprised. And I always put a lot of emphasis on that. I'm not a big fan of, teams when they do something, they go, I can't quite believe what we just done. I think if you believe you can do something, there's no need to say, I can't believe it, And Quansah never does that, does he? He doesn't look like somebody who's playing and going, I can't believe this. I think he's probably sat and watched the first team for a little while and gone, I can do that. I know I can do that. And I think that's not being big-headed. That's just having belief, isn't it? And I believe that's one of the greatest attributes you can have as a footballer is that, do you want me to play? Yeah, I can do that, yeah. Whereas you get other people who get a bit overawed and they get giddy, don't they? And they get a chance and they do all silly interviews before the game and, I can't quite believe it. And, I'm so glad my mum and dad are going to be whatever. Whereas I think Quansah just goes, yeah, put me in a team, I'll go and play. Because he's somebody who likes the responsibility. He looks like he wants to take responsibilities and he wants to get on the ball. He wants to play out from the back for a big boy, technically very good, quick feet, isn't it? So we said it the other week, Trevor. I think he's sensational. I really like him.
A lot of people, when your generation of players started coming into the Premier League and in through, especially the sort of mid-90s to late 90s when there was a real influx, Chelsea kind of leading the way. There was this sort of cocked eyebrow amongst the British media if a fella said, yes, I played well, or I think I did very well there in the second half or whatever. People were just frank about their performance in a way that wasn't falsely humble. I hate that false humility. I think it's a lot of shite. It's just nonsense. And it's a thing that it was absolutely assumed. It wasn't cricket to talk about oneself in a positive fashion, you see, back in the day. And it was a real breath of fresh air to see these lads coming in from all sorts of countries that weren't British and speak in that way that wasn't in any way arrogant. It was just simply matter of fact. And I think that's the kind of thing, that's the zone where it's finally come into the English game now, where lads like Quansah can do that and not be absolutely pilloried. Although, like I said, he did get a little bit of it. I have to say, right, before I get on to the next question, I came across a thing there during the week from an absolutely brilliant Twitter account run by a lad called Davola, and he gets his hands on some of the most incredible video footage. I don't know where this lad is sourcing his stuff. It's not just match clips. He's got other stuff as well. And you, my friend, featured heavily this week in a fantastic clip that I just have to talk to you about. So it looks like it's it's obviously ITV or BBC, because that's basically all we had, right, in that era. It's one of the two, and they're running this piece, and I'm not sure if you've seen it since you did it, or if you've seen it recently, or if you actually saw it, or if anyone pointed it out to you this week. But basically it is a local school teacher, and he's getting his kids all riled up because he's getting them doing a bit of chanting and all that. But before that, he tells them the sorry tale of a young professional footballer called Jan Molby, who's just moved into the area and who has been plagued by lads knocking on his door early in the morning looking for tickets or autographs or whatever it happens to be. And he's telling them, this is not the way we do things around here. We got to give poor Jan his quiet time and let him have a rest in the morning. He's a professional footballer. He's got to get his sleep. And maybe then we could just things would be better. And he says, we've got a surprise for you. And he gets them chanting Liverpool and Everton, and then you walk out. Do you recall this?
I do. I don't think I've ever seen the piece, and I don't think I don't think I can remember going into the school.
Really?
But I do remember the story, of the kids knocking on the door on the way into school, and I don't know how we would have, I literally lived over the road from the school. So I don't know how we would have got from my house to the school, because I certainly wouldn't have gone and knocked on the door of the headmaster. That's not my style. But maybe, I can't remember going to the school.
I imagine it because it was so, it was so, I don't know, just friendly and it was all very nice the way it was done. I imagine it's just probably a neighbour said, those kids are pestering the shit out of Jan. It probably got in because obviously they requested you to come over and you said your few words to them at the end, and it was just really, it was just a cool little thing. I thought. I wanted to ask you as well. Is that basically when you put down roots? Is that pretty much where you stayed, or have you moved along since?
No, I've moved a couple of times. That was my sort of bachelor house, and I moved in. And when I bought the house we're in now, 20 odd years ago with my wife and whatever, there's all sorts of considerations, and she's talking about schools and whatever. When I bought my bachelor house, I just wanted a house that was fit for a bachelor, Trevor. I wanted a house where they converted the garage into a games room and they had a swimming pool in the back, and that's what I got. And then, a week or two after I moved in, I realised there was a school with 400 kids getting dropped off and picked up, twice a day, isn't it? But it was just one of them things. So I lived there for a while. So I've never had anything against. We do what we do and we reach some fame, isn't it? And with that comes something, isn't it? So I never had a problem with that, but
you go out of your way in the piece to say, lads, or kids, listen, you call anytime you want in the afternoon or in the evening. There's no hassle. We'll sign whatever you want. We'll do photos, whatever you want to do. And it was really obvious from your attitude even then. And a lot of people at the younger end of their career, they don't have that attitude. They're like these little fucking annoying toe rags. I wish they'd just bugger off. There's you could have easily been forgiven because that was the attitude an awful lot of people in your position would have had, but it was patently obvious you didn't. And I've seen that stuff, yeah. I know people I know who know that I work with you and they've bumped into you and they've just gone up and they've gotten a photo and never anything other than, an absolute gent to deal with. So it is. Listen, people do appreciate that because it's not as common as you might think, that attitude, Jan.
Yeah, as I said, I don't really know. I just know that my aim is never to disappoint. My aim is to try and please as much as we can. But maybe there is a line that some people can cross, Trevor. And when you interfere with sleep, we've spoken about sleep before, haven't we, Trevor? Sleep is important, isn't it? So, if you're going to knock in the afternoon.
I think that's a golden rule right there. Back to our questions from our subscribers. This one goes off into a flight of fancy in the second half, which I will spare you from, but it's from Daz. And I like the first half because it just comes down to a little bit of, I know you have experience here with the man, so I'd just be interested to see what you do. So he puts this sort of scenario to you. So you and Jurgen are the last men standing at a Liverpool function, right? Everyone's had a bit too many. And Jurgen starts really shooting the shit with you now, asking you for your appraisal of the season, how it's gone. And, seeing that you could see things from the outside, what's going right, what's going wrong. So the question is, would you go down the Roy Keane nuclear route, in other words, be incredibly frank and honest, or would you take a more safe Jermaine Jeunesse approach? Having had experience with the man, would you feel like you had to couch it, basically, I think is what Daz is asking, or do you think you're the kind of lad who could take both barrels if you're both several beers in?
No, I think Klopp understands that, criticism is part of what he does. Whether he would take it from somebody who's as much an outsider as I am in terms of other people that are a lot closer to him, I don't know. I had the privilege during lockdown, COVID, of being one of very few reporters allowed inside Anfield, and obviously because we couldn't send anyone from Denmark, I used to do the interviews after the game, and because I was more or less the only one who was there apart from the host broadcasters, I always got Klopp, but I always had the press officer coming out 10-15 seconds before and going, Jan, you're getting Jurgen, he's on his way, go easy. Or if they didn't say anything, you would kind of know what kind of mood he'd be in, And I think that in those days, what probably affected his mood more than anything was the lockdown, the whole situation, wasn't it? No crowd and no excitement, whatever it is, you know what I mean? But a couple of times he would go easy, and that's obviously because, I don't know if you remember, he had a couple of run-ins with the guy from BT Sport, isn't it? The reporter.
That's right. Yes, yeah. Des Kelly, wasn't it? Des Kelly.
Yes. And then I would be on the back of Des, and I might have had sort of similar questions I wanted to ask, and the press officer would just go easy, and then you go, okay. So you just do your 3 questions, basically, you're happy with the game, blah, 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 whatever it is, you know what I mean? And I also think that it isn't our job, Danish TV, it's more the host broadcasters, isn't it? It's their job to ask difficult questions, isn't it? So, but I don't know, but also, Trevor, if me and Jurgen were having a beer, and I guess we were drinking Erdinger, because Jurgen would be able to get them for nothing, I don't think I could help myself, There would be things I would have to ask him, and obviously certain things about this season, and what his thinking was, and, what was he thinking when McAllister came and it didn't quite work out, and what's his thought about David Nunez, and, that information about David Nunez that we will never get. Jurgen Klopp will never tell us how he's felt, in the last 18 months with David is. So all them things, isn't it? But also there's some interesting bits back in the day, isn't it? Whether that's Philip Coutinho or, Sadio Mane, what happened there, isn't it? Even somebody like Mamadou Sakho, I'd like to know what actually happened there in the end. These are all the interesting things that I guess we might have to wait for the book.
Yeah, but you're right. If you had an opportunity and the beer was flowing, I think the first question I'd be was, okay, tell me about Buvac. What was the crack there?
By the way, I forgot about that, Trevor, didn't I?
Yeah, everyone wants to know. I think that's human nature.
Yeah,
and look, what's the worst thing he could? The worst case scenario, he says, I'm not going to talk about that. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly,
we have one more, and this is again a sort of a hypothetical situation, and again, we have to allow for the fact that there's differences in the time and all that, but we've had a similar-ish question in the past. This is from Umbilical Boy. He says, I was watching the Carling Cup game against Fulham last night, and it made me suddenly think, I wonder what could this team do against the team that Jan played in. So if you take our full-strength team today, exactly as they are now, modern diet, fitness, tactical awareness, tactical discipline, all those kind of things, and you set them up against the team of your choice that you played in your Anfield years, and we bring them forward and we set the two teams up against each other. So let's say it's a 2-legged affair, he says, because that might make it a little bit different. We often talk on our various podcasts about how it's a totally different affair over 2 legs. What do you think will happen? And let's allow a kind of equaling, balancing off in terms of whatever that maybe there were different I think this is overplayed, Jan. I think you'll agree with me here. I think it's overplayed to talk about modern fitness. I don't know what they think people were doing in the 70s and 80s, but I mean, I think it's overplayed, this modern fitness crack. But anyway, allowing for equaling of all of those kind of things and just leaving the playing ability. How do you think the current iteration of Liverpool would get on against, let's say, that double winning team that you were a part of, or that really good top of the table team that won the league in '88? What do you reckon? Would they stand a chance? Would you guys romp it? Is it impossible to judge? Would our current lot win? What do you reckon?
I most definitely think it's impossible to judge. But I always have this feeling, Trevor, and that's what people say to me, you couldn't play today. And I go, what? I'm not so sure about that. Because instant the things that I would look at would be, fitness and whatever. They would be the things that I look at and go, well, okay, because I would trust myself as a footballer. And when I think back to my teammates and I try and compare, I think we had better footballers.
Yeah.
I think
I do too.
I think we have better footballers. Whether that see what they are today, they are better coached, and the setup in games for almost every eventuality is much better than anything I ever experienced as a player. You had to find your own way. We'd had very, very few. I mean, I was at Anfield for 12 years, Trevor. I don't think we ever had one corner kick routine. Today, I don't know, they'll have 25. They've got 35 different throw-ins, so whatever. So I think all that masks it a little bit. I think we did a lot more off the cuff. And I'm just sitting here looking at it. I have a poster in front of me, Trevor, and it said Legends of Anfield. And right in the middle of it, John Barnes, Ian Russ and Peter Beardsley. And just on top of them is Kenny Dalglish and Keegan. And I look and I think, they were visibly great footballers to look at, but they were also cute footballers when they were really intelligent footballers, and I think even the best. So when I look at John Barnes, instantly I think Mo Salah stats are on a different planet to John Barnes. But I think John Barnes was a better footballer, He was a better footballer than Mohamed Salah. I look at Ian Russ and I think, as much as we talk about our front five or the front three we had before and whatever it is, but does any of them really get anywhere near Rushy? And even Peter Beardsley as a roaming sort of, false number 9, Sir Kenny, Keegan. So I think we had better footballers. But they would give us a hell of a game because what they do, Trevor, is they'd obviously fine at trying to expose our weaknesses, isn't it? So I think it'd be a hell of a game. It'd go to penalties. I would take all our penalties.
This answers the last part of the question.
Exactly, Trevor. That's the end of that.
Well, it actually answers the last part of the question, which is would you put any of your own money on the result? And if you're taking the penalties, you're backing yourself. I know that for sure. I'm delighted you went there because I do think there's an awful lot of bollocks talked about fitness and all the rest of it, and the idea that the players of your generation couldn't adapt to the modern systems game is absolutely nonsense. Or whatever extra level of fitness requirements. It's just an extra little bit of discipline that everyone can do the discipline part. It's the talent thing that really is the clincher. And I just feel if everything was equalised, I just think the players from that era are just, like you say, just demonstrably better. Look, we have a limited amount of time left, and obviously since we spoke last, we had a lovely, convincing win in the league. One of the more enjoyable games to watch. The first half might have been a little bit tight for people's liking, but to run out 4-0 winners in that situation with a team that's one of the other form team in the league, I think that's fantastic. To do it away from home, I think that's fantastic. It says an awful lot about this comparatively diminished squad to go and do that, and then to dig out the result they dug out last night. The goal which effectively sort of killed the spirits of Fulham for a long time. They got a goal to get back into it. You could say that perhaps if we had our normal man between the sticks, that probably doesn't get conceded. You can say a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the lads that did go out there, again, dug out another win, found, as you said last week, another way to win a football match. And I don't know what you thought, Jan, but I thought there was a level of just happiness all over the face of Jurgen. It meant a lot to him to get to this final with so many of those fringe lads featuring so heavily.
Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. we don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bob Paisley, who was never my manager, Trevor, somebody once said to Bob Paisley, your team played well today. He said, once we got 3-0 in front, we played well. And that was a bit like that on Sunday, wasn't it? Once we got ourselves in front and put a distance between us and Bournemouth, and we played well. But that was impressive, actually. I don't care what anyone says. Most teams have found it really difficult last few months to play against Bournemouth. So I thought that was yet another one of those where you go, yeah, do you know what? Performances like that, you won't go far wrong with them. And then Fulham, let's look at it. Fulham are getting beat 2-1 from the first leg. They have to come at us. What do? We grab the game straight away. We take it away. We go, no. This is our game, innit? We control the game. We scored a goal. Something has to happen late in the first half. We come back in half-time, does his little bit in it. Eventually we get a goal, a little bit of a fluke. But I spoke to somebody today who went, it was a bit... I never felt we were under any threat whatsoever. Last 10, 15 minutes, I just never sat there and thought, here we go, Fulham are going to score. So, I think it matters, Trevor, because Klopp is now starting again, isn't he? It's not the quadruple, but it's still a quadruple, isn't it? So he's thinking, well, if I want to win all 4 in a season, I have to be in the final of the first one we play. Which is the Carabao Cup business. So I think he's excited that, who knows? I think he's thinking, got a chance of Europa League, And in the FA Cup, we know, sometimes you need a bit of luck with a draw and whatever, isn't it? And I think he knows it's on in the Premier League, So he's thinking, we didn't quite get it done. Well, fuck me, this could be the year,
That's what it feels like, and I think you can see it on his face, and I think there's that feeling amongst the squad too. But to focus for the last part of the show, for the last few minutes, on what is to come, there is an FA Cup match that you just flagged up there against Norwich in 3 days' time, effectively Sunday at 2:30 at Anfield. You talked about the luck required, and obviously you get egg on your face if you don't come through these type of ties. But to get a home draw against someone that's not in the very, very top tier is we'll take that as Liverpool, because we haven't had great cup draws in recent times, and to even see 2 of the comparative big hitters drawn against each other again, is looking like it's a good thing for further progress for our men. So I want you to touch briefly on what you think he's going to do in terms of the Emirates FA Cup match at Anfield against Norwich on Sunday. But we'll focus most of our attention, I think, on the game against Chelsea on Wednesday night, because it has the feel of one of those big nights. It really does. It's going to be Anfield under lights, and the way the thing is set up, Liverpool are going to be going into a top of the league and hopefully hanging on to that position by the end of it. There's a lot at stake. In other words, it will feel as if there's a lot at stake. We know we're playing Chelsea in the final of the tournament that we got to last night. This will feel for some people like a warm-up. I don't think it'll have anything to do with it in that regard at all. But people have mentioned, the games against Chelsea have been a little bit drab, and then they go to extra time, they go to penalties and that type of thing. I don't have a feeling of that kind of game coming at us on Wednesday night. I think there's something about the urgency of the way the season's going. I don't see it going that way. Just to focus a little bit, and this is with due respect to Norwich, it's not. I think we'll both agree that we should, depending if we play a strong team, we should beat Norwich. If he goes with all the children and the tea ladies, then it's up in the air, and who knows? I have no idea how he's going to approach that. I don't think anyone really does, so it's hard to tell. What we can tell is Chelsea's form. They had a massive aggregate 6-2 win over Middlesbrough over the two legs, 6-1 in the game most recently on Tuesday night. They had beaten Fulham 1-0 in their previous Premier League game, and they had a 4-0 win over Preston in the third round. They beat Luton 3-2 in the Premier League. They beat Palace 2-1 in the Premier League. And on the 24th of December, they had a reversal where they went to Wolves and lost 2-1. They are certainly a lot more solid than they were at the start of the season. The table does not necessarily reflect them as a massive threat. They're on 31 points as opposed to our 48. However, they're not that far away from the zone where they could start sneaking into things if West Ham and Brighton and United have a little bit of a wobble or Tottenham fall away a bit. I'm sure that will be Chelsea's aim, but it looks as if European football of a second-tier nature is possibly going to be the height of it for them unless they put on a proper charge, and we will want to stop them doing that. Just again, for the sake of it, in case people are interested in knowing what they look like, in that most recent win, the 1-0 win over Fulham, they went with Petrovic, Gusto and Colwill on the flanks, Disasi and Silva in the middle, Caicedo and Fernandes as their more deep-lying midfielders, with Palmer, Gallagher, Sterling ahead of them, and Broja up front. And on their bench, we know Chelsea are very strong. They have Madueke, who came on, Chukwuemeka came on, Chilwell came on, Gilchrist. They also have Badiashile on there, Mikhailo Mudryk, who's also on there as well, and several others. It is a strong squad. Do you feel that they are starting to get it right, Jan? Do you feel they're going to pose a big threat to us on Wednesday night under the lights?
Not necessarily. I still think there's two Chelsea teams. There's a Chelsea team at Stamford Bridge, and there's a Chelsea team at travel away. I was at Old Trafford a couple of months ago when they got beat 2-1. They got beat 2-0 at Everton. You mentioned they got beat 2-1 at Wolves. So I still think that on their travels, they're extremely fragile. I still think they haven't got that tightness, that togetherness. They've got some really good players. Of course, they've got some good players with the money that they've sent and showed they should, but they haven't got a good team as of yet. So, but it's still Chelsea, isn't it? There's a modern day rivalry between Liverpool and Chelsea. So there'll be an edge to the game. And they'll be up for it, that's for sure. You know, they want to lay it down a marker. There's no doubt about that. But I still think, even without, I mean, you mentioned what would he do against Norwich. No doubt he's going to go quite strong against Norwich because he doesn't want to ruin the work that we did by beating Arsenal away from home. But the interesting bit is obviously Robertson and, you know, what's the situation with Szoboszlai, what's the situation with Trent and whatever else, isn't it? But I think we'll be quite strong. But it's a beast of a little week, isn't it? Chelsea at home and Arsenal away. You know, I guess already now in his mind, he would have picked the starting 11 for Chelsea and the starting 11 for Arsenal. And let's hope nobody gets injured and he can stick to that, isn't it? But he'll have a very clear plan on how he wants to attack those two very difficult games.
100% he will, and that's a very interesting thing. If there are people coming back into the fold, the most obvious one that just to touch on briefly, because it will be something that's occupying space in people's mind. We saw the very heartening sight of Andy Robertson on the bench and out and about doing his warm-ups. I thought it was quite notable that he didn't come on even for a few minutes. I think that might suggest something that he wasn't ready to come on. You would have thought there'd have been a little sort of just an opportunity for a little bit of recognition from our fans there, or just even the practical thing of getting a couple of minutes into his legs. It would seem that he's a little bit far off. So I don't think he's going to be ready for Chelsea, given that there's only the FA Cup game between now and then. If and when he does start to become ready, do you think it's a no-brainer? Because an awful lot of people would, and I have the suspicion that Jurgen might as well. That he might just go, well, it's Robbo. I mean, Robbo's got to come back in. This is the question I'm asking you, really, in a roundabout way. Does he have to come back in, given the fact that his form has not been what it used to be?
Oh, that's a tough one, isn't it? I mean, like you said before, it's Robbo. At his best, one of the best left fullbacks in the world. Does he come back in? I almost feel like this is the bit that might have been better in our day. Because in our day, Joe Gomez would have stayed in. We're playing well. The individual in question is playing well. We're winning games. So they wouldn't have changed that. But I agree with you. Which one, though? Because there isn't... I mean, the obviously one is the Norwich one, isn't it, where there's an easy sort of... But Chelsea and Arsenal, you don't want to go to war there with somebody's not fully fit. So I think Joe might get those 2 games in it, but I do think that Robert will then be maybe given a Norwich game and then other games will be coming up, and then we're in Europe as well, aren't we? So it might not happen as quick as he would have done, but let's not forget it's always been a while. Are we talking 3 months? We're probably talking out the game for almost 3 months, isn't it? So it will probably take a little time.
There are a lot of people who are surmising that enforced rest might be no harm for a lad at that stage of his career who's played basically every minute that God was sending to play. He was a starter for club and country almost all the time for season in, season out, playing, racking up 50 plus games. So probably around 60 games on average per season. So, there are people making that argument, as there are making that argument about Mo Salah, that, hopefully that, can be more of an opportunity to recuperate other muscles as well. And it's a very positive way of looking at it. I guess the pessimistic way of looking at it, Jan, I'm just going to ask you this with your ex-player hat on. When you see Mo getting an injury like that, having been so indestructible for so long, and that particular injury as well, does it raise a little alarm in the back of your head that, oh God, shit? Or do you think that you've enough faith in the way the modern techniques in terms of healing techniques, that it shouldn't be something that will necessarily be an ongoing issue?
So we had a season in the late 80s where Alan Hansen were basically out injured all season, and Gary Ablett stood in as a centre half. And Gary Ablett, the late Gary Ablett, he played so well he got himself involved with England, but still, before every game, I would have rather had Alan Hansen. And I think that answers your question, doesn't it, in that we're playing well without Mo. But I still feel, immediately before every game we play, I'd rather have Mo than anyone else we could put up. In terms of, we'll get him fit. Mo has never, ever had these type of muscle injuries before. I think before we can blink, he'll be back in action. Obviously, I think also depending on how aggressive Liverpool might be, will have to do with how Egypt do. Because if Egypt are progressing, we'll have to have the back of our mind that maybe we're monitoring him for Egypt before he's ours again, isn't it? So what would probably help us, it wouldn't help Mo or Egypt, but if they were knocked out, then we could go, well, okay, he's now ours, and this is our programme. But in the meantime, we have to be very aware of what is Egypt's programme and when do they have potential games, isn't it? But see, if you wouldn't have asked the question, I wouldn't have mentioned. I would have gone, I'm not really bothered because we're playing well. But when you dig into individuals and go, well, who would you rather have? Would I rather have Alan Hansen or Gary Ablett? I would rather have Alan Hansen. Would I rather have Mo than any of the other front four? Yeah, I guess I would.
And it's just a matter then of, as you say, hoping that it's not the start of some sort of an ongoing niggle and that he is going to go back to being made out of steel girders, which he has been for his time so far. Like you say, Jan, the games are coming thick and fast. We will have Norwich and Chelsea to talk about at the very least before we speak next, and that will depend on your availability, hopefully after the Chelsea game and before the Arsenal game, because there's a small enough window there. But it's interesting, isn't it? Chelsea and Arsenal back to back. It feels like a real kind of crunch time. But before we finish up, people will want to know how you feel Norwich and Chelsea are going to go in terms of results.
Yeah, I think Norwich is probably a little bit similar to Chelsea. There's a Norwich City at home, but there's a Norwich City away. I think they'll be fragile. Of course, it'll be the biggest game of their season. But I think almost regardless of who we play, I think we'll beat them 3-0. And Chelsea, and I'm looking at Chelsea, and I'm looking at their lack of goals away from home, and I'm thinking, who can actually cause us problems? Broya is probably going to play up front. Injured for a long time. Not sure he's back to his best. Sterling has never done well when this is at Anfield. Palmer's having a good season, although a lot of goals have come from penalties. So, do you know what? We've done this before, Trev, haven't we? It's straightforward. 3-0 wins. 3-0 against Norwich, 3-0 against Chelsea.
Well, I look forward to the reality in which we're doing the next show, talking about exactly that. Hopefully that'll be the case. And Jan, a whole lot crammed into the hour, which I've kept you for the full of this week, and I appreciate your time. So as ever, thanks very much.
No problems at all, Trevor. You're welcome. And like you said, it's gone into another gear now, hasn't it, the season. You're not looking at every game and you go, we got to win them all. I know we can't, but you got to believe that we can win them all.
We do have to believe it, and there's an increasingly large amount of people who do, including the two of us, it would appear. So let's hope that is the case. And like I say, myself and Jan will be back with you sooner rather than later, hopefully recounting and regaling you with tales of Liverpool victories, and looking forward to further ones as this season develops. But from me, Trev Downey, from Jan Molby, this is Molby on the Spot for Anfield Index Pro. We'll talk to you soon.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index, and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.